Today, it's all about the Canon 7. Hey, thanks for joining me. So today we're talking about the Canon 7. It's a camera that initially I had a hard time falling in love with, and really more for aesthetic reasons. But the more I use it, the more I have fallen in love with this camera. I really love it. It's got a lot of great features and got a lot going for it. And they're actually readily available, and they're lower priced than some of the other popular Canon rangefinder cameras. So let's take a look at this Canon 7. I'm going to put it on the workbench where you can see it under the camera up close. We're going to talk about some of its features and what I really love about this camera. And also, before we get done, watch to the very end, I want to talk a little bit about adapting other lenses like some of the Russian lenses to it, and a way you can actually convert or add Canon SLR lenses like the Canon FD and FL series lenses to this camera. So let's take a look at the Canon 7. Now let's get started. The Canon 7. Now, the original Canon 7, which is what this one is, was introduced in 1961. It followed the Canon 6 and the Canon P. In a previous video, I showed you Canon L2, which was actually a part of the Canon 5 series. And, I've also used that, and I've also used some of the older, more Barnack-style Canon cameras like this 2S2. Canon made some really amazing rangefinder cameras. And, the basis of them, of course, is the Leica thread mount, lens mount, and Leica thread mount style cameras. But the 7 really departed from a lot of those things. So, introduced in 1961, this is the most popular Canon rangefinder camera that Canon ever made in terms of the interchangeable lenses cameras. They made 137,000 of these. It's even more popular than the Canon P, which is a very popular camera today. The Canon P, they only made 87,000 of. So, 137,000 of these, they made just a ton of these. And as I mentioned in the intro to this, these are available for less money often than the Canon P, and you can get really good deals on them, and they've got a lot of really nice features. Now, I think the thing that kind of holds them back is they're just not as sleek or as pretty. This big selenium cell meter it's kind of ugly. The 5 and the 6 series are more sleek. They're, I don't know, just that's what drew me to the L2s. Is a lot of it was the aesthetics. But I decided to try a 7, and this camera has really grown on me. Not only does it have a lot of great features, it really just performs really well. So just to start off with, the thing that really sets this camera apart, first of all, is this dual range Selenium cell light meter. You can see the meter readout on the top. It's coupled to the shutter speed dial, so you can actually see it change as let's get a little closer here. As we change the shutter speeds, you can actually see it change. The light meter has 2 ranges. There's a knob here on the back, and it's a little hard to see. Turn this around where you can actually get some light on it. There's an orange dot on one side of the knob, and there's a black dot on the other side. The orange dot is the high sensitivity, and the black dot's the low sensitivity. So you'd use the high sensitivity indoors or at lower light levels, and the low sensitivity when it's bright outside. And there's 2 scales on the meter. Obviously, you can see there's 2 sets of numbers here. The orange numbers correlate to the orange dot, and the white numbers correlate to the black dot. So this gives you a range of metering capability that is pretty broad. Now, one of the things you hear about these sometimes is the meter doesn't work, but I've actually found most of these that I've messed with, the meter is either easy to fix or it already does work. 2 things that seem to hang up the meter. One is the switch contacts behind this. If you take the top cover off, cleaning these contacts is real easy. The other one is this Selenium cell. There's contacts that connect the wiring to the cell itself, and those get oxidized over time. They just need to be cleaned. But doing those things, I have 2 of these Canon 7s with this meter, and both of them work and they're accurate. you know, I think if they are, you know, given a little bit of attention, if they're not already working, they can be made to work pretty easily. This camera has speeds from 1 second to 1,000th of a second, plus, this is something you don't see too often on 35mm cameras, not only has bulb, it has a time setting. So you can fire the shutter, it will lock open, and it'll just stay open until you flip it off the time setting. And so you have the ability to lock the shutter open without using a locking cable release or something like that. So it's really handy. Now, you notice that this camera has no accessory shoe on it. That was corrected on a little later version of this. They did make, the flash connection here has a bayonet lug around it, and they did make an accessory shoe thing that came locked on over here and came up over the meter, had a cutout for the meter window, but it gave you an accessory shoe. They're kind of hard to find and often cost as much as one of the cameras. I understand they're readily available in Japan, and yet you don't see very many on eBay. I guess the Japanese are hanging on to them. I did also see a version on someone's video that locked on here and just came up and had a shoe over here rather than in the middle. I haven't actually seen one of those for sale online. I don't know if somebody made that. One of the things I've considered, the flash that, and this same flash connection is used on the like the earlier cameras like this L2. You can see this flange deal here. There's a number of flash bulb flashes that are available pretty cheap, and I'm wondering if one couldn't take, and they lock on here, I'm wondering if one couldn't take part of that locking mechanism and make your own accessory shoe thing. I'm going to actually look into doing that. But the big thing about this camera that really sets it apart from the rest of the Canon rangefinders is the rangefinder viewfinder. Now you'll notice, first off, not only do you have your rangefinder window, your viewfinder window, you have this extra window that has the frosted, you know, material or plastic or whatever it is in it, where other rangefinder cameras like these, like the Canon P and the 5s and the 6s, they don't have that extra window. What that is, on the Canon P, your frame lines are basically they're reflected using light coming into the viewfinder to reflect off the frame lines and allow you to see them. But they can, under certain lighting conditions, be kind of hard to see. This is what has what you call projected frame lines. Light from the front of the camera enters this, and actually those frame lines then are projected in your view. And I don't know if we can get this to where you can actually see them, but that's not going to work. But the frame lines are projected into your view, and there's frame lines for several different lenses. So this camera has, let me turn this back, has frame lines for 35mm, for 50mm, for 85 and 100mm, and for 135. So for the most part, you're never going to need an accessory viewfinder on top of this thing, unless you get like a 21mm, you know, wide angle or something like that. You're probably just not going to need an accessory viewfinder. And you notice how big the window that you view is on this thing, especially compared to, you know, like the L2. It's huge, massive, and you know the viewfinder window on front is really large. So you've got one of the brightest, easiest to see rangefinders that you're going to find. It is very comfortable to use. I think the magnification, if not 1x, is close to it, like 0.9, something like that. Some people say that you can keep both eyes open. I'm left eye dominant, so I can't keep both eyes open because my other eye is going to be, you know, if I hold this up to my left eye, my other eye is over here. So I never can do that. But if you're right eye dominant, theoretically, you could put your eye here. You could look straight ahead with your other eye. I've tried to do that. I've never just really found it that easy to do. Maybe some people it works for, but for me, just looking through the viewfinder, it's nice and bright. Got those nice frame lines, and they're parallax corrected. As you focus, the frame lines in your view will actually start up a little to the top left. When you're looking from the back here, their frame lines are actually kind of up and to the left, and as you focus closer, they move down and to the right. And so what that's doing, since the viewfinder window is, you know, up and to the left of the lens, or as you're looking through the camera, it moves those frame lines, you know, back and forth so that as you focus, your framing is accurate. Now, the parallax correction is a really nice thing for having accurate framing. It's one of the challenges that you have with a camera like this is you don't have any parallax correction. So you just kind of have to guesstimate that, but the parallax correction on this is really nice. Has a self-timer if you need to do that. Of course, it's lever advance and has a shutter or film counter that resets when you open the back door, and it counts up instead of down, which I really like. I hate countdown timers or countdown film counters. This has a conventional rewind knob. It's not like the recessed rewind knob like you get on the 5 and 6 series. It's just a conventional knob. It does retain this safety lock that if you watch here closely, you can actually see this tab that moves in and out as I turn this. So with it locked, you cannot open the back door. It's locked. It's a safety lock. And then with this, you can open the back door. Now, one of the nice things about this, you notice that these are not cloth. This is a stainless steel. It's got a black coating on it. I'm not sure if it's industrial hard chrome or what the coating is they use, but I've never seen it wear off. But these are actually metal shutter curtains. So if you accidentally have this, you know, set to a wide aperture and you leave it sitting on someplace and the sun is shining through it, it's not going to burn a hole, especially if your lens is set on infinity. It's not going to burn a hole in your shutter curtain like can happen with cloth curtains. And that's just a hint. If you're using any kind of rangefinder camera that has cloth shutter curtains in it, you always want to make sure if you're not using the lens, well, the best thing is to keep a cap on it. But stop it down, make sure you're not focused at infinity. That way, if the sun is going through, it's not as bright and it's not focused on the shutter curtains. So that's something you kind of have to watch for. And that's not going to generally happen if you're walking around moving, the camera's moving. Anything that's projecting on shutter curtains will just be kind of moving around. But it's when you set the camera down in the wrong place and the sun is shining through it, it can actually do that. So these curtains are metal. Now, you'll find some of these that the curtains are wrinkled in. And if you find one and they're a bit wrinkled, don't be too alarmed. As long as they don't have any cracks or tears in them, you can see this one looks pretty terrible. This one also, somebody squirted a bunch of oil in it before I got it, and so it's got some oil. I keep trying to clean some of that off. Eventually I'll get it all off, or I'll have to take it apart and wash it out. But it doesn't seem to hurt anything. It's just kind of annoying. But you can see these curtains are fairly wrinkled. The second curtain is anyway. That means someone's accidentally jabbed their finger into it and caused them to wrinkle. If you have one of these, be careful not to get your finger into the shutter curtains. You can wrinkle them relatively easy. And once you wrinkle it, you're not going to get the wrinkles out. Again, the wrinkles don't hurt anything, but they're kind of ugly. So anyway, the other thing I like about the shutter in this camera is how quiet it is. This, to me, has one of the nicest sounding shutters. Now, this is set at a 30th of a second. I'm going to be quiet. Just listen to this. It's a 30th of a second. Let's go to a 60th. It is just a beautiful sounding shutter. Really quiet. Now, one thing I didn't point out, this little button back here, you probably can see it. That's for changing your ISO setting, your film setting, which is labeled ASA here because it's an older camera. But if you want to change it, you just hold this button down and then you can turn to get whatever ISO setting you want, and then turn loose of the button, it locks it in. Anyway, pretty straightforward camera, but it really is just a fantastic camera. Now, there is a successor to this one. They made a version called the 7S, which is what this one is. And this one I bought as not a parts camera. It's one I'm going to repair at some point, but it's got a shutter problem, but I've got to replace the curtain tapes actually in it. But you can see they put an accessory shoe on it. The meter is repositioned. Other than that, it's very similar. It looks a bit different on the front in that the meter is now a CDS meter, and it uses a battery that goes in down here. Now, so this has a calcium, or not calcium, now I'm not going to remember what CDS stands for, but it's a meter that actually uses a battery, and The only problem with this is they can also be found with the meter not working. And this uses the PX625 size batteries that are, the original ones like these were 1.35 volts, and the ones you can buy now are 1.5 volts, because the original batteries are made with mercury, which is not a good thing. And so they've been outlawed. You can only buy this version. And because of that, the meter either has to be recalibrated to work with the higher voltage battery, or you can get an adapter so that a 675 hearing aid battery will fit in here with an adapter, and they're pretty inexpensive. You can get them on Amazon. And then those batteries are a zinc air battery, and instead of 1.35 volts, they're like 1.4 volts. So the difference is close enough that the meter generally is going to be okay. But one of the reasons I initially thought I wanted one of these is really an aesthetic thing. I like the look of this, maybe instead of this big Selenium thing, but at the same time, this whole window is much bigger, so it didn't really get much prettier. But I don't know, I've really just kind of fallen in love with the original one. The looks of this really has just kind of gotten out of my head, I guess. I've really gotten to where I like the camera. Now the 7S, like I say, is basically the same camera. Some things are a little bit different here. You just have a knob here that says C for battery check, and then off and on for your meter. And there's no high and low setting. It's all just on one setting. And other than that, it's largely the same. Mechanically, the shutter is the same. It's got the same locking thing down here. They've moved the tripod socket from the other end of the camera over to close to this. Let me see if I turn these so that they're both facing the same way. So you can see the lock is, the tripod socket's now closer to the lock. So they repositioned that, which I think that was a good thing. The other one being way off center is a little bit weird to use. There is another variation of this Canon 7S, and it's not labeled any different. It just still says Canon 7S. Collectors refer to it as the SZ. This little port right here that you can unscrew this cover on, this is a rangefinder adjustment, moves and is now over the second in Canon. So it's like right over here instead of right here. So if you run across a Canon 7S and it has that adjustment port above the second in on Canon, you've got one of the last ones. It actually also, and the main reason they made the change is they made the viewfinder where it has a little bit better image quality. It's got a little less what they call ghosting, so the image is just a little cleaner and a little easier to use. Other than that, it's more or less identical. Now the 7S is not very common. They only made 4,000. No, they made 16,000 of this. They made 4,000 of the 7SZ. So these are a little more difficult to find, and you'll pay more for them. In the end, and I bought this one really inexpensive because it has a problem with the shutter, and I'll fix it at some point. But I kind of thought I wanted the 7S just for the aesthetics, but I've really come to like this camera, so much so that I actually have two of those too. And I use these pretty frequently. The extra, the size difference doesn't really bother me. I mean, if you compare the two, they're, the 7 is taller, and, I think they're more or less the same width. Yeah, they're more or less the same width, but it is just a little bit taller. It's kind of like like a M5 compared to the M3 and M4 and M6. The M5 never was popular because it was just a little bit ugly. So, but this ugly duckling, I have really come to find myself really in love with it. I really enjoy it. So let's talk about a couple things that you can do with this. You'll see a lot of people using Russian lenses like the Jupiter 8 or one of the Industar, like this is an Industar 61 LD. And these can be used. However, you may find there's some focusing inaccuracy. Two main problems. The first one is that the base focal length for Leica, and Canon copied theirs Leica exactly, is a tiny bit shorter. So the Leicas and the Canons are like a 51 point, don't quote me on this, 51.3 or 4 millimeters, and The Russian lenses are like 52 point something or 53 millimeter. So the thing that creates, it's a tiny difference. But what happens then is you'll often find these where they, you put it on, you focus to infinity, and it seems to line up in your viewfinder, and you assume everything's okay. What will happen is if you shoot pictures at a wide aperture at very close focus, you're likely to find that you are focused slightly behind your point of focus. So if you focused on someone's eyes, you might find their ears in focus. And that's if you're really up close to them at near close focusing. But if you're stopped down a little ways and you're not focusing up close, you might not ever notice the difference. And a lot of people say they've used these and had zero problems and they're fine. The thing is, they probably haven't gotten real critical about where things are being focused. And, for most people, especially if you're shooting street photography or something, you're not up close to your subject and you're using a smaller aperture, you'd never notice the difference. But if you're kind of a technical geek like me and you want everything to be perfect, it'll bug you. So there is a way these can be modified. The Jupiters can be modified to work. It involves actually taking the lens apart and removing some material from the piece that holds the actual lens elements, and you move the rear element closer to the front elements, that rear group closer to the front, and then you have to reshim the lens to adjust infinity focus and then reset where your aperture ring falls. It's a process, and it's a trial and error thing, really. You just have to kind of go back and forth till you get it right. I have done that to this lens and have it it's not perfect, but it's very close, and close enough that if you're stopped down at all, you'd never see it. But it took quite a bit of time to do that. Now, the other thing that I think is really cool with any Leica screw mount or Canon lens is this adapter that Canon made called get to focus on it here, the Canon Lens Mount Converter B. So what this is like a thread on the back, Canon's bayonet mount on the front, that allows Canon FL and FD series lenses to mount on a screw mount camera. Now, why would you do that? Well, wide angle lenses can often be some of the most expensive lenses for rangefinder cameras. And if I wanted, now this is a 35, not a 28, but if I wanted a 28 millimeter wide angle lens and couldn't find one at a price I could afford, I could get this adapter and put a Canon FL or FD 28 millimeter lens on here. Now this is a 35, so I can just use the 35 setting in the viewfinder and it would be fine. If I got a 28 millimeter lens, I would need to get, and on the 7, this would be a bit of a challenge because you need a viewfinder on accessory shoot. It might be a better option for something like an L2 or something that has the shoe, or the 7S that has the shoe. But you could get a 28 millimeter lens, a 28 millimeter viewfinder, and they make some real inexpensive plastic ones you can get online for about $30, or you could buy something a bit fancier. But then you could zone focus this. These Canon wide-angle lenses for the FL series, look at that, only not even 90 degrees focus. That's pretty cool. So you could zone focus it using your depth of field scale, and if you're stopping down a little bit, you could easily just zone focus this and just view and shoot and not have to worry about focus with a wide angle lens. So anyway, that's the Lens Mount Converter B. They're a little pricey on eBay. Every now and then you'll find a good deal on one, or you'll find one mixed with some other junk. This one actually is one my dad bought when he had a Canon 7. He got rid of the Canon 7 eventually and switched to Canon F1s, but he kept this thing for some reason. I ended up with it. You'll also notice that the Canon 7 does have an outside bayonet in addition to the threaded lens mount. This was specifically for the Canon 50mm 0.95, that maximum aperture of 0.95. Super fast. It's a huge lens, but in order to support it, they created this outside bayonet that works a lot like the Canon FD series. The lens has a ring, kind of like this, that you when you mount it on the camera, then you turn the ring to lock it. So that was kind of a Canon thing, a trademark. So You can look for one of these Canon lens mount converter Bs, find you a 28mm lens that's nice and compact. If you're doing this with a Canon camera that has a accessory shoe, either the 7S or one of the 5 or 6 series or one of the older Canons, you can basically have a wide-angle lens on your Canon without spending a lot of dough. Anyway, so that's the Canon 7. It's a great little camera. Got a lot of features, a lot going for it. It's very easy to work on, and they're readily available. If you buy one of these, you're probably going to end up buying from a Japanese buyer. But like I've always said, choose a buyer that's got a good review rating on eBay, and communicate with them. Most of them I have found do a really good job of supporting their sales. They want that near 100% customer rating, and they'll do what they have to do to make sure they keep it. But still, read their descriptions carefully. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and you can find some really good deals. Anyway, that's the Canon 7 camera I've really come to enjoy. Well, there you have it, the Canon 7. I think it's a great camera. Like I say, it's got a lot going for it. If you're looking for a rangefinder film camera and the price of a Leica just is a bit much for you, or you just don't really want to spend that kind of money. It's not that some people can't afford a Leica, they just have other things they want to spend money on. So if you're looking for a good quality rangefinder camera, it's got a lot going for it, it's really durable, still can be worked on, they're easy to work on, take a look at the Canon 7. Well, I hope that was helpful. If you have any thoughts or comments, I always love hearing from you. Please don't hesitate to leave me a comment. And as always, thanks for watching. Well, there you have it, the Canon 7. I think it's a great camera. Like I say, it's got a lot going for it. If you're looking for a rangefinder film camera and the price of a Leica just is a bit much for you, or you just don't really want to spend that kind of money. It's not that some people can't afford a Leica, they just have other things they want to spend money on. So if you're looking for a good quality rangefinder camera, it's got a lot going for it, it's really durable, still can be worked on, they're easy to work on, take a look at the Canon 7. Well, I hope that was helpful. If you have any thoughts or comments, I always love hearing from you. Please don't hesitate to leave me a comment. And as always, thanks for watching.